Please welcome our wonderful, wonderful speaker, Dr. Sheila Fleming Hunter. Dr. Hunter? I'm taking my book with me.
Don't worry, I have mine already. Good afternoon, and welcome to the 94th Annual Luncheon for the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. As chair of the ASALH Awards Committee, I'm pleased to announce that nominations are open for the following awards: Carter G. Woodson Scholars Medallion, Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune Service Award, Freedom Scholar Award, the ASALH Luminary Award, the Council Award of Special Recognition, and the Living Legacy Award for 2020. Awards will be accepted through April 24th, 2020. Please visit asalh.org/awards for more details. The ASALH Living Legacy Awards honor African American women and men across the country engaged in extraordinary work to improve communities, institutions, and organizations in family life. A living legacy is an ordinary person who combines her or his circumstances, resources, and environment to provide manna for the people. Establishing a legacy or becoming a living legacy is no crystal stair, as the late Dr. John Hope Franklin would say. Living legacies take straw and make brick. Our honoree today, like John Hope, recognized that we owe it to the ancestors to climb those stairs, splinters and all, because a dream deferred is not acceptable. Lonnie G. Bunch III, you stepped into history, and having viewed from afar with all your experiences, grappling with the commonalities of the challenges of American exceptionalism that come from an international perspective, you led a movement that erected a living legacy for all ages, the Museum of African American History and Culture. Your legacy, your legendary work indicates that you daily have Sankofa moments, leading by faith and not sight. When you started as director in July 2005, you had one staff member, no collections, no funding, and no site for a museum. Driven by optimism, determination, and a commitment to build, and I quote, a place that would make America better, you transformed a vision into a bold reality. The museum has welcomed more than 6 million visitors since it opened in September 2016 and compiled a collection of 40,000 objects that are housed in the first, quote, green building on the National Mall. So we're not only black, we green. A site of transformation to help us view our racially troubled America. It helps us to bridge chasms, learn the pain and power of slavery, and be in a place of reconciliation and healing, all at the same time. When I was national president of ASALH in 2006, you were our speaker at this very event. Having been on the job as director of the museum for approximately 6 months, you were on fire and able to articulate a vision grounded in a century-old dream of Civil War veterans, Mary McLeod Bethune, W.E.B. Du Bois, Mary Church Terrell, Kelly Miller, Jackie Robinson, Betty Shabazz, James Baldwin, Mickey Leland, John Lewis, J.C. Watts, and Sam Brownback, and Max Cleland, and so many more. Standing on the shoulders of those giants, your legacy is now their legacy. You helped us make our ancestors smile because their hopes, dreams, and work have a home in the nearly 400,000 square feet edifice standing on the Constitution between the 14th and 15th Amendments. I mean streets, 14th and 15th streets. We recognize that you put a lot of sweat in as a historian, author, and curator long before 2005. And we applaud all your work, including now serving as the 14th Secretary of the Smithsonian Institution. Can I get an amen? For those who don't know, Secretary Bunch oversees 19 museums, 21 libraries, the National Zoo, numerous research centers, and several educational units and centers. You go, Lonnie. Lonnie G. Bunch III, you are unapologetically a Black man, using history and culture as a tool to help our nation come to grips with its tortured racial past and to find understanding and hope through the creation of a museum. Lonnie, you went on a fool's errand to achieve a dream deferred, and you exceeded everybody's expectations, except perhaps those other two Lonnies. Now, as the 14th Secretary of the Smithsonian, we await with a bated breath to support your next errand. Lonnie G. Bunch III, the fruits of your labor help our nation find a truer, more candid sense of its history, its identity, and itself. You are a dream catcher, a fulfiller of dreams, and a ASALH living legacy, an humble man who helps people remember not only what they want to remember, but what they need to remember. It is my honor to present on behalf of the Executive Council and the thousands of members of ASALH throughout the world, the ASALH Living Legacy Award.
Where do we stand? Yours over here?
You have to hear what's on the award. We wanted to continue with our fool's errand. Lonnie G. Bunch, Living Legacy Award presented to Lonnie G. Bunch III, designer of a dream, for your extraordinary work in helping America to remember. The Association for the Study of African American Life and History, the 94th Annual Black History Month Luncheon, February 22nd, 2020, Washington, D.C. We are honored.
I must admit, when I was first told I was going to get the Legacy Award, I was so glad to see it said Living Legacy. I was worried that the association knew something I didn't know. But I have to tell you, this means so much to me, partly because of my profound respect for ASALH. This is an organization that has been a clarion call to remember. This is an organization that said, America, you do not know thyself unless you know Black America. I am humbled by this award because ASALH means so much to me personally and professionally. Candidly, ASALH embraced me when no one knew my name. ASALH welcomed me. It gave me a network of other scholars to work with. It helped me to realize that there is nothing wrong between finding the tension between history and memory. What I think more than anything else is that without the support of ASALH back in 2005, 2006, there wouldn't be a National Museum of African American History and Culture. So I want you to know how important ASALH is. But I also think people who know me know I don't like to do awards because I get to stand in front. A lot of other people do the work. And I want you to do me a favor. I want you to acknowledge that table with the museum staff. Can you stand up? the staff of the National Museum of African American Culture. So I am here because of them and hundreds of others and many of you who supported this museum. So I accept this award, but I don't accept it for me. I accept it on behalf of all those enslaved women who got up every morning and fed their kids and refused to let the field strip them of their humanity and their hope. I accept this on behalf of all those brothers who ran afoul of the criminal and justice system, who didn't get the chances that many of us in this room got. I accept this on behalf of all those families who left the South for Chicago, Newark, Los Angeles, in search of a better day. And I accept this award on all those people who walked across Edmund Pettit's Bridge and made sure America would confront its tortured racial past. And I accept this award on behalf of my grandmother, who took in other people's laundry, scrubbed other people's floors, so her children and grandchildren wouldn't have to work on bended knee. So with this award, what you're really saying is that there is nothing more powerful than a people, than a nation steeped in its history. And there's nothing more noble than honoring all of our ancestors by remembering. So thank you for an award that I will never forget from an association that has shaped almost everything about me, other than the fact that I married above my station. I will take a few minutes because I want to do something out of character for a historian. I want to be brief. I want to talk a little bit about the power of remembering and what we need to remember about African Americans and the vote. I once received a letter that began, "Dear left-wing historian." So even I knew that wasn't a fan letter. But the letter said, "What happened to the Smithsonian I loved? It used to tell stories that made us proud. And now a museum you may build will make us remember a past that is better unspoken." And then he went on to say, I think, a really powerful line. He said, "Don't you know that America's greatest strength is its ability to forget?" He then went on to say there shouldn't be in a museum. He began to attack historians like me, who he said should never work at the Smithsonian. But I must admit, he threw me off because he signed the letter, "Best wishes for your continued success." That's a true story. But in an era of fake news and partisan distortion and disrespect for the facts, history is needed more than ever. And the need to remember should trump the need to forget. Oh, I don't make political statements. I think we'd be better off if we really remembered the words of two different people who shaped my thinking. I think if we remember the words written by James Baldwin, who said, "The great force of history comes from the fact that we carry it within us, are consciously controlled by it in many ways, and that history is literally present in all we do." But also, as Sheila said, there was a person I met named Princey Jenkins. He was a 92-year-old sharecropper outside of Georgetown, South Carolina. And he had lived in a cabin with his enslaved grandmother. So for a historian, this is the Holy Grail. And he was an amazing man. But one of the things he said to me as we began to talk, his exact words were, "I'm not sure what a historian is, but if I know that your job should be to help people remember not just what they want, but what they need." And that to me has motivated so much of what we do. Because I realize that ultimately you can tell a great deal about a country by what it remembers. what graces the walls of its museums, what holidays are celebrated, whose statues are in its park. But I would suggest to you, you learn even more about a country by what it forgets. What people's cultures are left out of the nation's narrative. What truths are unspoken. And is a country committed to a fair representation of its past? For example, what does it tell us about America? That there are hundreds of statues that celebrate the Confederacy, but fewer than 20 that recognize the struggle for African Americans to gain and protect the right to vote. What does that tell you about America? The act of forgetting is so powerful because it really reminds us the importance of history. It reminds us the ability to provide perspective, contextualization, understanding, insight, and inspiration, all that is needed as we grapple with the contemporary challenges we face. And a nation that celebrates forgetting is ripe to accept extremism and hate. A nation that remembers can always be made better. And in some ways, that's what ASALH has always done. It has helped us to be better by challenging us, prodding us, encouraging us to remember. And this choice of the theme that ASALH has of African Americans in the vote is especially germane as we enter this election season. An election season that is truly a test to determine the future direction of this nation for decades. And it is essential that we remember how difficult the journey was to achieve the vote and what was lost in protecting that vote. Because, as Evelyn said earlier, what we should take away from history more than anything else is we need to vote. And the embarrassment of people who have a right to vote, who don't vote, is really a stain and a dishonor to those on whose shoulders we stand. At this time of partisan conformity, it's essential to remember that African Americans have always believed that protest is the highest form of patriotism. And African Americans have always believed that so much of the struggle is to gain the right to vote is geared to the struggle for black men and black women to find fairness in America writ large. So much of America's energy was spent on developing ways to deny blacks the right to vote, limiting access to the vote via legal tactics, via intimidation, and by violence, reducing the impact of the number of African Americans who can vote by the criminal justice system. In some ways, an article in the New Republic confirmed what America has been about. The title was simply, America's Relentless Suppression of the Black Vote. Therefore, it is so important that we wrestle with this theme of African Americans and suffrage, because what is so powerful is so many Americans and many black Americans have forgotten so much about the struggle for suffrage. For me, it's important to just lay out quickly what I think has been forgotten. Americans forget that the struggle for black suffrage is centuries of struggle, that black women and men saw the fight for the vote as an essential part of a broader strategy to change a country, to demand equality, and that if you lose even a piece of that, you don't have the tools to change a nation. We often forget the fragility of the black access to the vote. We think with the 15th Amendment, with the 19th Amendment, with the Voting Rights Act, we realize that those can all be chipped away. That blacks have gained the vote, but blacks have lost the vote. In some ways, what is important to us is to recognize through history that nothing is guaranteed without vigilance, without struggle, without leadership, without a determination to make a country live up to its stated ideals. What is often forgotten, I would argue, is the central role that black women have played in the battle for suffrage, It is black women who have led the way. It is black women who challenged white suffragettes, who embraced the need for women to vote and the need for America to remain racist. It is efforts of women like Helen Cook and the Colored Women's League here in DC, or Ida B. Wells and the Alpha Suffrage Club in Chicago. All of what these people are doing is saying that it's important for us to remember that all the pictures we see celebrating the 19th Amendment is that we realize that it was not a lily white movement, and that women like Mary Church Terrell and Nannie Helen Burroughs and so many deserve to be remembered and revered. And we often forget the evil creativity and the machinery of racism that was used to thwart the 15th and 19th Amendments, from poll tax to literary text to literacy tests, from racist court decisions to incarceration and violence. There has always been a war to suppress the black vote, a war that will always continue. And we often forget that without the vote, we don't have the voice. Without the vote, there's a silence. And we know how people trample over those who are silent. And we must remember why it's so important to vote, because so many people gave their lives for the vote. You think of Reverend George Lee in Mississippi, or Cheney Goodman in Swerner. You think of the hundreds of people who lost their lives because they had the temerity to want to register to vote, because they had the temerity to expect to be treated like full citizens. Ultimately, by choosing this theme, ASALH helps, as John Hope Franklin used to always tell us, helps to put a mirror to America, a mirror that reminds us all of the struggle and the sacrifice for the vote, and that all who are eligible to vote often don't use it. And it reminds us through this era, though we should not need reminding, that rights are not guaranteed without a never-ending struggle to demand fairness and expect the nation to live up to its ideals. But let me end by quoting Cornelius Holmes. Cornelius Holmes was an enslaved man from South Carolina who was interviewed during the WPA. And he was asked the question, now that slavery's over, does slavery matter? And he said, though the slave question is answered, its impact is not. It is on our streets, it is on our highways, it is in our courts, it is in our restaurants, it is in everything we do all the day, every day. I am so proud of ASALH because ASALH helps America realize that all of us, regardless of race, are shaped, informed, and made better by the African American experience all the day, every day. Thank you very much. Thank you.